Hello, and welcome into the Ringerverse, your Nexus feed for all things fandom. I am Ben Lindbergh, senior editor for The Ringer, button mash host, and recommends wrangler. And I'm here in that last capacity today with the latest edition of our monthly recommendations roundup, Ringerverse Recommends for May 2025. As always, as those of you watching on video know, I am joined by my loyal recommendations sidekick, the loving, fierce, and today somewhat sleepy dachshund Grumpkin. And Grum and I will be joined soon by almost every Ringerverse and House of R host. In fact, every Ringerverse host is here, all present and accounted for. Sadly, we are without House of R host representation this month. Mal and Joe are off. They'll be back in June when we will need them with a slightly lighter release slate. We'll have to dig a little deeper to unearth some gems for you. But filling in for Mal and Joe today, we have friends of the Ringerverse, a few familiar faces and voices who will be chiming in with their recommendations. I thought this one would go to 11. We didn't quite get there, but we did get to double digits. We have 10 recommendations for you, all released over the last month, more or less, that we liked a lot, but haven't had a chance to discuss in depth on a full episode. Because in case you haven't noticed, we've been busy pumping out the pods here at Ringerverse HQ. We've been occupied with The Last of Us and Andor and Thunderbolts and all the other heavy hitters. And that just makes this recommendations episode all the more valuable, in my mind at least, because so many other quality releases would otherwise slip through the cracks and we wouldn't have a chance to discuss them in depth. So we are here to rectify those oversights today and give you a wide range of recommendations across media, most of which are in the traditional Ringerverse vein, but some of which break the mold a bit. You never know what you're going to get on Ringerverse Recommends. You just know that you're going to get good recommendations. That much we can promise. At the end of the episode, I will be back with a recap of all of the recommendations for this month. I will also relate a listener nomination, which you can submit to ringerverserecommends@gmail.com for future months. We still are unable to use clips on these episodes, and so I will be reprising my performance as the guy who acts out the trailers. So I'll show off my best acting and hyping chops. For instance, Joe was a late scratch this month due to scheduling conflicts. So she had made a recommendation which she wasn't able to record in time. And so I had come up with a little intro to that recommendation, which was going to go a little something like this. From BBC to Disney, won't you listen to Joe's plea? From Matt to Peter and then Joe D. For 14, they tap David T. Now Shooty is the doc to be. TARDIS, Time Lords, Daleks, woo! Well, have I got the show for you? Doctor Who, Season 2! That's what I would have said, but now you'll never get to hear that. What a shame. In lieu of a House of R host, let's lead off with a House of R producer. I pass the baton to your friend and mine, Steve Ahlman. Hail to the king, baby.
What's up, everybody? Steve Ahlman here from Ringerverse Recommends. My recommendation for the very merry month of May is a Steam game in early access right now that came out just last week. It's called Nine Kings. It's a deck-building auto-battler that I have absolutely been addicted to. It's these cute little pixel graphics soldiers that you control with different plots of land in your kingdom, and every year you go to war with a different king and you build up your little forces and different plots of land, and it's super fun and engaging and very, very quick and easy to play. If you're a fan of Balatro, if you're a fan of roguelikes, if you're a fan of auto battlers, this is definitely something to check out, and it's just under $10, so I don't really see any reason why you wouldn't want to. Check it out, Nine Kings.
I don't want to make things weird or anything, but it's been nice being friends with you. What? What are you? Why would you say that? What are you even saying to me right now? Are we not friends? Why would you not be friends with me? I thought we were friends. Can we please be friends?
What's up, Ringiverse? This is Arjuna with my Ringiverse recommendation for the month of May. I'm recommending a movie. It's the new Paul Robinson movie, Friendship. And I'm going to get into some slightly spoilery territory here, but the reason I'm recommending it, beyond it just being like a fun comedy cringe movie that you got to see if you're a fan of the Tim Robinson experience, is that there is a subplot in the movie. Well, a subplot's too generous of a definition. I would say there was a recurring joke in the movie about the characters seeing the latest Marvel movie. They don't call it Marvel movie, they call it the Marvel. They're like, you got to see this Marvel. I heard the new Marvel is good. And I think it's just fun, obviously, for our fan base and our group to embrace that, right? We cover a lot of the Marvel content here on the Ringiverse. We talk about it a lot as a group. And I think it's just fun to have a movie that, talks about that. Obviously, they never define what the newest Marvel is. There's a lot of fun interactions around some of the characters about it with spoilers, maybe it being good, it not being good, actually being good. And so if you do go see Friendship, maybe you can kind of do what I did in a funny way and try and guess what the Marvel is that they're talking about. Are we talking about Thunderbolts? Are we talking about Brave New World? Does Friendship a few years before? Are we maybe in, 2021? Are we talking about Eternals? Are we in the future? Is Doomsday out? Who knows? That's the fun of it. That's, you can go see Friendship and you can decide yourself what Marvel they're actually talking about.
Oonts, sci-fi, animation, colors. Oh shit, how long was I out? Nobody needs to get hurt. Pew, 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 pew. I'm sure I'll be fine. Rig, Morty, give me a holler when this goes south. We don't want to stop here. This is the Morty part of town, if you know what I'm saying. Burn it all down, boys. I'd hold on to something, Rick. You wouldn't. Oh shit, how long was I out? Rick and Morty. Its co-creator was canceled, but the show wasn't.
What's up, Ringiverse? It's your boy Jomi, and I'm recommending for the month of May on Ringiverse Recommends Rick and Morty Season 8. Now, you're probably like, Jomi, Rick and Morty in the big year of 2025? What is wrong with you? Here to tell you, you're probably right. But I enjoy the show, okay? They got the new voice actors, and they're going on wacky, wild adventures. And frankly, I still have fun watching it. I don't care that you need to have a high IQ to enjoy the show. No. It's just something that, I've found like a comfort in how wild and wacky the adventures can get, despite the fact that, we have certain qualms about the people who watch the show. But that's besides the point. I'm having fun. When I got home on Sunday and I was like, yo, new Rick and Morty, I loaded it up. You know what? I had a good time. And you might too. So make sure, if you're not locked in, they got all the seasons on Hulu, on HBO Max. What are they calling it? Max? Whatever. They got it on the app that has HBO and or Max on it. Okay, if you're not locked in. But if you are, Season 8 is premiering this month. Make sure you lock in. Thank you.
Hey, Maggie, I killed your husband, and now I'm your co-star. Ain't that complicated? Hey, it's Ben, back again with my recommendation. Usually I use this space to tell you about something I sincerely like and think you should check out. This time I'll be telling you about something that I've been watching, and what you do with that information is entirely up to you. None of my business. You probably spent some time in May watching The Last of Us Season 2, as did I, as you know, if you listen to Button Mash. I also spent some time watching the second season of another post-apocalyptic zombie show, The Walking Dead: Dead City. Yes, I am still watching The Walking Dead in the year 2025. Periodically, I like to update people on that just to tell them that no, I have not managed to shake this habit. The Walking Dead Dead City does not need to exist. It takes place about 20 years after the zombie outbreak and several years after the end of the series and even the previous spin-offs that we've seen. I was initially excited by the premise of this show, which was Maggie and Negan go to New York City. I'm a New Yorker. They never make media about my city. Finally, New York would be featured on TV. Well, that's been a great disappointment because this show is mostly not made in New York, and it doesn't even look like it does. Not even a little TV movie magic here from AMC convincingly making this look like New York. The premise for the series, pretty flimsy. There's a new faction called the New Babylon Federation. It's not really clear how it relates to the existing factions that we've seen in other shows. The driving force is that the New Babylon people want to get the methane that some survivors in New York have managed to create by using decomposing walker bodies. And so they've gotten power out of that. Is there no other possible source of methane? Is there no other possible source of power? I don't know. These things aren't really explored. However, there are some redeeming elements of this show. Namely, I always enjoy Lauren Cohan as Maggie. That continues to be true. The Negan-Maggie dynamic has gone through many twists and turns over the years, and this is just the latest. Negan, as always, is wrestling with whether he wants to be a good guy or the bad guy he used to be. They're playing the hits, and Lucille the Bat is back. The show even acknowledges that it's playing the hits in sort of a meta way, but it is sort of putting a spin on it. Here's what the show has going for it. One is Herschel. That is the new Herschel, the young Herschel, the living Herschel, the son of Maggie and Glenn, R.I.P. And he's kind of an interesting character because he's sort of scarred by what happened to his dad at Negan's hands and bat before he was even born. And that's been hanging over him. And Maggie has been fretting about that and not being able to let it go for years and years. And so Herschel is sort of seduced by this new ruler who's in charge in New York. That is actually kind of interesting. So as a character study, I like it. It's also weird in a way that The Walking Dead isn't always. It's almost like the Warriors-esque look at New York and these various gangs that are holding sway. And there's this faction that exists in Central Park, and there's sort of an uptown and a downtown and just a bunch of theatrical characters. And that I have kind of enjoyed, that it's leaning into the weirdness as the season goes on. They're halfway through the 8-episode second season. Again, it's fine if you're like me, if you're still watching this franchise for whatever reason, then I'm just putting this out there as a PSA. There is new Walking Dead. If you suffer from the same disease I do, you might want to know. What if you were a podcast host and you had to host a podcast that used to use copyrighted clips, but you couldn't use those clips anymore? What would you do? Would you just give up? Would you use the clips and have your videos taken down? What if I told you that you could use the Lindbergh method and you could act out those clips so that they seemed so real that no one could tell the difference between the real clips and the rehearsals?
All right. My recommends this month is The Rehearsal. Great TV. Best season of TV of the year. Nathan Fielder is a madman. Also probably the devil. Also a genius. Make sure to check out my coverage on the Prestige TV podcast. But yeah, if you're into planes, airline safety, and just changing this world one rehearsal at a time, then tap in.
Despelote, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now. Wait, wrong song. Despelote, quiero desperar tu cuello despacito, deje que te diga cosas al oído, para que tú acuerdes si tú estás conmigo. Despelote.
Ringerverse. Hello, it's Matt James. This month, I'm recommending a video game called Despelote. Was there a time and place in your life that defined you that you think about all the time? Do you ever wish you could step through those moments as an adult with fresh eyes? Well, Despelote is one man's attempt to do exactly that. Despelote is technically a video game. It's available on pretty much every platform but Nintendo Switch. But it's really more of an experience than a traditional video game. In Despelote, you control the game's developer, Julian Cordero, as an 8-year-old in Quito, Ecuador in 2001. The story takes place in the weeks leading up to the Ecuadorian national team qualifying for its first ever World Cup. But you don't have to be from this place in time to feel like you're stepping through the past. Maybe you remember what it was like to feel an afternoon as a kid bopping around your neighborhood with no phone. Or maybe you still remember a time when a frustrated parent dragged you by the hand after you got soaked in the rain at an inopportune time. In Julian's memory, the big thing happening at the time, the World Cup qualification, and all these small moments are intrinsically tethered together. And maybe that interplay that's so true to real life is what supercharges these memories and makes Despelote feel so heartfelt and genuine. And there are times in Despelote when you'll have to play soccer or play a soccer video game or watch a soccer game on TV. But for the most part, how you spend your time in Despelote is up to you. It's your experience to have, learning little life lessons as World Cup buzz slowly fills the streets of Quito. The Ecuadorian national team's World Cup qualification clearly planted a flag within Julian, inspiring him to dream bigger and to be proud of being Ecuadorian. But it's so much more meaningful for you to experience that than for me to tell you about it. And that's something that a video game can do that other mediums can't. Sometimes in trying to explain a moment, we'll say like, oh, you had to be there, right? Well, thanks to Despelote, in some small way, that's not true in this case. You don't have to have been there. You can experience it yourself. Despelote is something special. You should check it out.
What do you mean you haven't heard of me? I was an original member of the Justice League of America. No, not Superman. Not Batman. No, not Flash. Not Green Lantern. No, not Aquaman. No, not Wonder Woman either. Yes, I'm sure there were 7 members. They called us the original 7. They've made multiple Shazam movies? Where's my movie? I'm the Martian Manhunter, damn it.
What's up, y'all? Producer Kerm here. You know, when I'm on the Ringerverse Recommends, we know what's coming. He's going to talk about the X-Men comics again. As always, wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. This time, I'm actually gonna hop over to the DC side of things, and I've been loving these Absolute comics, DC's answer to the Marvel Ultimate Universe. Specifically, I started with Absolute Batman. Then Steve recommended that I check out Absolute Wonder Woman. Gas. But his next recommendation for me is what I'm recommending for y'all this month. Absolute Martian Manhunter is really, it's that gas. It's that heat. And, you know, for me, I was a big Justice League and Justice League Unlimited fan growing up watching the cartoon. And that's really all my knowledge that I had of Martian Manhunter. As, you know, the Martian that came from outer space with the secret identity of John Jones. He pretends to be, you know, this white detective, and this reimagination in this comic by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez. What I love about it is John Jones and Martian Manhunter are really two separate beings coexisting in John Jones's body. Essentially, you know, Martian Manhunter has invaded this detective John Jones's mind and has looked to team up with him to fight off the white Martians. And I think what I really love about this comic is just how it plays with color and the visuals to display Martian Manhunter's ability to, read minds with telepathy. The way they display it is like one of the most beautiful ways I've ever seen telepathy displayed. And it's really just a trippy comic book. Really feels almost like more of a detective comic book than like a superhero comic. But it just works so well. 3 issues in. The first issue leaves you with so much intrigue, and the last 2 have only really just built on it. So I really recommend y'all check out Absolute Martian Manhunter. With 3 issues in, catch up and keep reading it monthly. Shout out Steve again, because hey, y'all know me. I be reading a whole lot of X-Men. I love my Ultimate Spider-Man as well. I don't stray too far from the comics that I'm used to reading, that I pick up weekly. But I trusted Steve on these suggestions, and boy, well worth it. So check it out.
I always knew this day would come. I held him off for years. He's a relentless son of a bitch. Won't stop till he finishes the job. Death is coming for our family. Whoosh. Witness the birth of death.
Hi, I'm Ringer Staff Writer Miles Surrey, and for this month's Ringerverse Recommends, I'd like to recommend Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, this is the 6th installment of the Final Destination series, but you don't have to be a franchise veteran to appreciate these films. I saw Bloodlines a couple weekends ago with my girlfriend. She hadn't seen any of the other Final Destination movies before, and she had a really fun time with it because, like me, she is a sicko at heart. Now, these movies do follow a familiar template. They start off with a harrowing incident. The first one, it is a plane crash, and the third one, it's a roller coaster accident, and then from there, the survivors are picked off one by death, coming back to claim what it's owed. Bloodline does do things a little differently, where the incident actually happens decades into the past. It's a restaurant tower collapse, and spoiler alert, it's gnarly as hell. As the title implies, death isn't just trying to take out the survivors of that incident, it also wants to wipe out their entire bloodline. The selling point of Bloodline, like the other Final Destination movies, are the creative grisly deaths that happen to these characters. The characters themselves, they're never really multidimensional, with the exception of the great Mary Elizabeth Winstead in Final Destination 3. They're not often played by good actors. You're there for the deaths, and I'm happy to say that Bloodline delivers on that front. Sometimes you do want to watch and appreciate a movie for exploring the human condition, but sometimes you also want to know what it's like when a guy with a ton of piercings gets killed by an MRI machine. So if that sounds up your alley, check out Final Destination Bloodlines.
The one constant through all the years, Van, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Van. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Van. People will most definitely come. Batter up!
Hello, it's Van Lathan. Listen, for my Ringerverse Recommends, I'm going to do something unconventional. I'm going to recommend getting back into Major League Baseball. Best Buy. Let me tell you something. It's the summer. We're all here. And what did I do this May? I got into Best Buy. And you might be asking yourself, how does baseball, have to do with nerd culture? And the answer is this. What I've learned is that basically to follow baseball at this point, you have to be a nerd. You have to learn all the advanced stats. You have to get deep, deep, deep into the lore of the game and what it means. Ben Lindbergh is helping me with this, so I'm going with baseball. Or you can always go with something good, which is that guy. Bozeman? Want to say hello to the people? Yeah. You like baseball? Huh? What a good boy. All right. Baseball. That's my Ringerverse Recommends for this May.
All right, it's Ben and Grum again. Thanks to Van for being the closer. I know we don't typically recommend sports here on Ringerverse Recommends, but take it from me, a baseball writer and podcaster. Baseball is definitely nerd culture. It's just a different flavor of nerd with a lot of overlap, like me, as you can tell from my wall art. Think of this MLB season as season 150 or so of a long-running show. I called Van the closer, but he didn't quite record the last out. That honor always goes to our listeners who submit their own nominations to ringerverserecommends@gmail.com. And the mailbag was bursting this month. Zach F. recommended To Be Hero X, a superhero-centric animated series on Crunchyroll for those who enjoyed Arcane and Blue Eye Samurai and who didn't. Brett Dodasevich, in honor of Murderbot on Apple TV Plus and Love, Death, and Robots Season 4 on Netflix, recommended Monk and Robot, the trade paperback collection of 2 Monk and Robot novellas by Becky Chambers. And Lucrecia recommended The Eternaut, the Argentine adaptation of a 1950s graphic novel on Netflix, which I absolutely should have watched instead of Dead City, superior post-apocalyptic sci-fi. However, our official listener recommendation for Ringerverse Recommends for May 2025 comes to us from 3 different listeners who independently submitted the same thing, and that is the novel The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. It was the 15th of loyalty, and Brother Diaz was late for his audience with Her Holiness the Pope. God damn it, he fretted, as his scarcely moving carriage was buffeted by a procession of wailing flagellants, their backs streaked with blood, and their faces with tears of rapture, whipping themselves along beneath a banner that read simply, Repent. What one was called to repent of wasn't specified. Everyone's got something, don't they? God damn it. It might not have been numbered among the 12 virtues, but Brother Diaz had always prided himself on his punctuality. He'd allowed a full 5 hours to get from his hostelry to his interview. Sure, that would leave him with at least 2 to piously admire the statues of the senior saints before the celestial palace. It was said all roads in the holy city led there, after all. Graham H. writes in to say, picture, if you will, a dark fantasy novel set in an alternate universe Europe, focused on a Suicide Squad-type cast of unique and compelling characters. Humans, elves, necromancers, knights, vampires, werewolves, maybe even dachshunds, but not the kind you're used to. Joe Abercrombie invokes grim fantasy with a refreshing twist in this book. I would also recommend listening to the audiobook. When listening to the narration of Stephen Pacey, you sometimes forget he is the same voice behind such a diverse group of characters. Tom Shapansky writes in to say, while most of Abercrombie's books take place in the world from his First Law books, which Graham also smuggled as a secondary recommendation, this one takes place in an alternate reality of our own. In this world, mythical creatures such as elves and vampires exist, plus the aforementioned werewolves, and the Christ-type figure is a woman. As a result, the church is female-led. This story is about a monk who was put in charge of a secret sect of the church that uses the tools of their enemies against them and is sent on a mission to overthrow an evil ruler and install the true heir to the crown on the throne. In typical Joe Abercrombie fashion, you can expect a dark fantasy story featuring a colorful cast of characters, sprinkles of humor throughout, and of course, people being brutally killed. If you are a fan of Abercrombie's previous work or dark fantasy in general, I highly recommend The Devils, as did our old pal Zach Cram, who thirded this recommendation for The Devils. Okay, April showers brought May flowers, and we brought flowers for a lot of content today. So let's recap the picks for Ringerverse Recommends May 2025. From Steve Ahlman, the video game 9 Kings on Steam. From Arjuna Ramgopal, the movie Friendship, still in theaters. From Jomi Adeniran, Season 8 of Rick and Morty on Adult Swim, and eventually HBO Max. From me, Season 2 of The Walking Dead Dead City on AMC and AMC Plus, a qualified recommendation. From Charles Holmes, The Rehearsal Season 2 on HBO Max. From Matt James, the video game Despelote on all gaming platforms. From Jonathan Kermah, a.k.a. Kerm, the Marvel comic Absolute Martian Manhunter. From Miles Surrey, Final Destination Bloodlines, still in theaters. From Van Lathan, Major League Baseball on MLB TV or various other channels or at a ballpark near you. And from a few listeners, the novel The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. All right, we have a lot coming up on the feed as usual. Elden Ring Night Rain and Elden Ring movie news coming up on Button Mash early in the week. And then the following week, Nintendo Switch 2 and Summer Game Fest, tons of news. Also, in between button mashes, the Midnight Boys, pew pew, will tackle a racist movies draft. Oh boy. And over on House of R, Mal and Joe will talk to Tony Gilroy and do a Mission Impossible draft. So stay tuned for all of that and more. And of course, keep your emails coming to ringiverserecommends@gmail.com. Tell us what you've liked that we have overlooked. Thank you, as always, for listening. Thanks to Grumpkin for being my sidekick for Ringiverse Recommends, as always. Sorry you had to put up with my trailers yet again. You're stuck with me for now. Thanks to Steve Ahlman for producing this episode. Thanks to Arjuna Ramgopal for his senior podcast management. Once again, thank you to you for listening. And until next time, we hope you'll recommend the Ringiverse.